Hello. Today we're talking with Damian Boeselager, who is a member of European Parliament and the co-founder of the Volt Party. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So obviously you're a politician, you have a platform. We're not going to talk politics right now as such. I would like to know like what's the day in the life of a MEP like what's your day like? What time do you get to the office, and what do you do when you get there?
So normally I try to go to the office at like 9, so to be there at around 9, and then we have mostly like a check-in with my team. So we every morning or every second morning we try to talk for half an hour about what's going on, what everybody's doing, and what the plan is for the next 2 days. And see if there's some conflicts that we like of calendar stuff, and so very organizational, but it's cool to check in, especially also in Corona times when you don't go to the office. It's super helpful. And then maybe it's helpful to understand how like a month is built, because like 2 weeks of a month I'm in Brussels,
right,
if there's no Corona, and there I have like, let's say, a couple of meetings, and I explain that. And then 1 week of the month, I'm in Strasbourg, where we have the plenary meeting, all the 705 MEPs together in one room and shouting at each other. Hopefully, that would be my dream, about or discussing or debating about certain topics. And then there's 1 week where I can travel a bit. So 2 weeks in Brussels, 1 week Strasbourg, and 1 week where I can travel to different events, if you like.
Okay.
And the normal day, I think, is meetings about a law I'm currently writing, is meetings with my political group. So I sit with the European Greens. When I joined, I was not sure, I negotiated with the Greens and the Liberals, but went to the Greens in the end. And so there's group meetings. So it's all the Green MEPs together. And then there are committee meetings where all the people together work on specific topics.
Okay.
Also, I think it's always helpful to understand that the parliament is like 705 people, and then subgroups of these 705 meet together to discuss, like topical areas, like it could be foreign policy, or could be, like migration policy or stuff like that.
Right.
And these are called committees, and then even smaller groups with just one person per political group. You write laws, and all these different formats have meetings that I go to as well.
Okay. I have a follow-up question to that. So, for example, for myself as a citizen, who is my representative? Because okay, so it's, I'm an Irish citizen who lives in Spain. But let's just say I was a Spanish citizen, like, because I know you studied in the United States. There, you can call up your representative or your senator and complain or ask about whatever policy. Since in the European Parliament, you're grouped together in a pan-European way, you group with political parties across the 27 member states. Who is the actual representative that I would contact if I have an issue that I want to discuss with them? Is it the national one, or how does that work exactly? Like, who do I call?
I think in these contracts that make the European Union, that we call the treaties, I think it says that parliamentarians are responsible for all people, for all citizens. So in the end, you should be able to call up any MEP that you feel somehow connected to.
Okay.
But obviously, there are some that you manage to get into power if you want, that you gave your mandate to. And who are these people? These people are the ones that you voted for, if you voted for them, if you went voting somewhere. So, I mean, that's a mathematical truth. Like if you went and voted for some form of, let's say, a conservative party in Spain, then and somebody got elected on your vote, basically, in Spain, then all the Spanish conservatives that got elected via your vote or where you have contributed should be asking, or should be responding to your text. If you then say like, hey, I voted for you and I feel that there's an issue that you should look at, then they should also do that. But in general, I think all members of parliament are very responsive people, or most of them hopefully are responsive. If you say like, I have an issue, can you please help me and look at this?
Do you get a lot of citizen queries or requests or
Yeah, some. But the thing is, I mean, Volt is a very young movement. No, like we have started in like a couple of years ago, and then now we are growing and we are active in different countries. I mean, you said pan-European earlier. Our idea is very simple. We just want to build a European party because our parties are so far national, and then they come together and work together. And they're really national. And our idea is just to build a European party, also to counter the the right-wing nationalism that is rising everywhere. So, so the people who reach out to me are very often people that somehow have heard of Volt and like the idea of a closer European Union, and like the idea of cooperating rather than going against each other.
Okay. What is your take on, obviously as a progressive politician, and I know you support diversity, inclusion, in the workplace, how do you address that? For example, do you have any assistants or any members of your team, for example, that don't have a college degree, or they come from a different background, like you as a citizen, you have a couple masters in public administration, and so you're like the perfect guy to start a political party. And I know you're working on making political parties easier to form. I read that too. Is that correct? But as far as diversity, how do you address that in your own workplace?
So first of all, I think it's super important to be aware of your biases and also like get smart on important topics. So I mean, I for my like my application, so I have 4 positions in my team, and for when I opened the applications, I made sure that like the first round of interviews was with people who were not me, so that like there would be first a bit more of a blind selection when it comes to expertise. And in the end, I hired one person who's out of who comes from Kosovo, and one person who comes from Tajikistan, so 2 non-EU people, and 2 Germans. And that was just because the process was very blind, and these were just the best people that I could find. So I think that was definitely helpful. I also did a training in harassment, so how to not do harassment, and that was also very helpful, I think, just to get a bit more aware of, there's sexual harassment, but there's also all kinds of harassments, I think, that you should be aware of, and try to do that. So like within my own office, I try to create a very inclusive atmosphere, also one that is not so much based on control but on empowerment, so like making people have fun doing things that they can actually influence, and then giving them the credit for it. I think it's, for me, very important to have a good, positive work environment for everyone. So that I think is also a factor of inclusivity. And then you're right. I mean, as I said, also for all internships, I always open them up. So I never, take someone because I know someone. And I mean, that's how all internships in the European Parliament are mostly given out, is by knowing someone. And for me, it's important to give an equal chance to everyone who feels like applying. And then that's, I think, an important part. And as you said earlier, I'm also trying to ensure that in general in politics, new political parties can come up more easily, so that you have more disruption, more innovation via the Electoral Law Act on the rules about our elections.
Okay. Well, Damian, thank you very much. This has been very informative. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I wish you all the best success in the future, to you and your party. Do you have any questions?
Thanks a lot. I mean,
do you have any questions
do
you have any questions for me?
To you and to everyone in the audience, when are you joining Volt? To make a little advertisement.
That's a good question. I'll have to give that some thought. It's interesting because when in the last European parliamentary elections, I called up the European Parliament out of curiosity and asked them. I was like, can I run to be a member of Parliament? They're absolutely. You have this right as a European. I was like, well, how do I do that? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I ended up having to call several offices throughout the European Parliament itself and in Spain until I finally found an answer, in which the answer was that you have to be part of a political party. And I've never really been into political parties as such, so that was a hard sell for me. But
Me
I
neither,
found,
until I found it.
yeah, I know, yeah. But I found Volt to be very interesting. I think our interests certainly align, very much so. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on this party thing, you know, a lot of people come to me and say like, hey, you know, I don't like parties. We need liquid democracy, and you know, I don't know, like all forms of what should happen. But in the end, currently we're still in party democracies everywhere in Europe. Yeah? So parties put people on lists, and lists are elected by citizens, and these people become then parliamentarians and government officials, or
Right.
like prime ministers or whatever, or ministers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I can give you one number. Since the 1980s, party membership in Europe has halved. Yeah? So people are not going into parties anymore because they find them unsexy. They find them like not up to date, you know, and too big and whatever. But the problem with that is that the right wing, the far right and the far left, they will always organize themselves well. And if you then weaken the middle, at some point the debate is shaped by the extremists in a way. And that's, I think, something where I get a bit nervous, and also because, you know, you need people to join politics so that there's or parties, so that there's just a bigger selection when it comes to, you know, who's running for lists and who's running for these things. But it's obviously difficult because it's not very sexy. I think party and politics in both sound extremely unappealing, at least in German. I don't know how it is in English. So yeah, I don't know. I think we need to somehow change that and bring people back in, and, you know, and actually a lot of people back into parties,
Yeah.
and somehow make it more attractive. And then we need to somehow maybe think about how to change the system, but that can only be the second step.
Right. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Damian. I appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best.
No worries. Thank you.
Yep.